Hello, my bookish friends. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Elizabeth. This is Reading Riley, and welcome to the newest installment of Top 5 Finds, a video series where I recommend you top 5 books that I like that have a similar trope, theme, category, etc. And today, that trope or theme or category is books with wild plot twists. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit today, and I'm going to give you 6. I'm going to give you top 6 that I've found because I can't decide which one doesn't belong. So they're all going in here. Some of these you may have heard of, some of these you may not have. These are all either thriller or horror books, most of them thriller, as I might expect for books that have plot twists that are wild and crazy plot twists. So obviously I'm not going to be able to give you a whole lot of information on these, but I'm hopefully going to give you enough that you are going to be able to decide whether or not you want to pick it up. These are in no particular order. Per usual, I'm going to pop my social media right up here for you. If you want to check me out over there, feel free to like and subscribe if you like this video. And let's go ahead and just jump right into these books. The first book that I want to talk to you about is by one of my favorite authors. That is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This one is very divisive. So people either tend to love this or hate it. The main thing that I love about this is that it's so unnerving. This is just, it's a weird one. It's a wild story. We're following this couple. And I would consider this more literary suspense, horror, thriller. It could kind of be any of those things depending on how you experience it, I guess. But it's just very unnerving. We're following this couple. They are on a road trip back to his family's farm, I think it was, and they're going to meet the family. So these two are driving along. They're having a conversation. She's a little nervous about meeting his folks. They haven't been together that long. She doesn't necessarily want to be with him. She's thinking, oh my gosh, did I get myself too far in this relationship that I ended up at this point where we are driving to meet his parents, and I think he's more committed than I am. But then he starts mentioning things that she's thinking, and she's like, wait, how are we just that in sync? Like, how are you picking up on what I'm feeling? But they're also having these conversations about academic things, about school, about surreal things, kind of pretentious. So if you don't like pretentious writing, you may not like this. I loved that because it really just makes you think. And the whole time while we're following this couple, there's just this very unnerving, subtle, creeping climb. And then when this twist is revealed, mind-blowing. This blew my mind when I first listened to it. And I will say the audio is incredible for this. And I think the way the audio is set up intensifies and adds to the experience of this twist. So if you are an audiobook listener, I would highly recommend this one on audio. There isn't a Netflix adaptation for this, which I did not love. If you've watched the adaptation and you didn't like it, you can still enjoy the book. And honestly, like, you may not even know the twist after watching that movie because it's so out there. Cinematography, beautiful. Acting, beautiful. The way that it was plotted out, though, does not make sense. It makes so much more sense in the book, although it's still kind of, ooh, wild, wild twist. This one's kind of vague, but this is The Last House on Needless Street. And if you read it, you will understand why it is so vague in its description. But essentially, we're following this man who lives at the last house on Needless Street. This house is kind of dilapidated and boarded up. There's a family of 3 that lives there. A very untraditional family. We have a man who just gets drunk and watches TV. He's trying to make sense of what's going on around him. He loses time. We're following a teenage girl who is not allowed to leave the house, not after last time what happened. And then also a cat. We have the POV of a cat in this book, which is the best part of this book. She spends her time reading the Bible and being high and mighty. She sees herself as very close to God and as kind of the watcher of things that go on in this house. This is set in Washington. Needless Street kind of edges up along this like wooded area, this forested area. And there is a secret that binds all 3 of these characters together. As you read the story, obviously you will find out. The twist in here blew my mind. If I had known the twist, I would have picked this up much sooner than I did. I, in fact, waited a long time because the way people were describing it, I was not interested in. But this specific twist is so up my alley, and if you watch my videos and you know the type of things that I like, you will love this twist. I had such a fun time reading this, especially with that perspective of the cat and trying to figure out and piece together what was going on. It hit me like a ton of bricks, this twist. I just thought it was perfection. I loved this story, I loved this writing, and I highly recommend this one. This next book I only recently read and completely regret not picking this up sooner. It is one of the twistiest thrillers I have ever read, bar none. So masterfully crafted and not at all what I was expecting it to be. If you like domestic thrillers or thrillers otherwise, read Look Closer by David Ellis. This author was not even in my scope of authors. Had no idea. I've never read a book by him. Picked this up on a whim. Holy cow. So many twists. In this story, we're following Simon and Vicky, who are a seemingly normal couple in Chicago. He is a law professor and she is a social worker and advocate for abused women. They seem to have this kind of boring life, but all of that is surface level. You don't know who to trust in this. There are some perspectives in this where we're getting it from Simon, who is kind of like the cool guy professor. He's very laid back. He kind of dresses like a student. He's very chill. He always talks about grammar in his head when he gets excited or angry or anything. That's how he calms himself. So he thinks about the way words are spelled, why they sound differently, spelled different ways, where the origin of that word came from, etc. The character work in here is great. He is talking in a second person perspective, and he has kind of a Joe Goldberg vibe to him. And then Vicky, we're following in a first person perspective. There is so much that goes down in here. We're talking affairs, we're talking trust funds about to come due, we're talking revenge. And when a socialite is found hanging from the rafters of her suburban Chicago home, everything starts to unravel. It's madness, madness. You think the twists are done, and then you get hit again and again and again. They just keep coming. Love how this was written. Excellently plotted. Characters are amazing. You have to read this. You have to read this one if you like twisty thrillers. You just have to. This has got to be like the bar. This is the standard that we all are looking for when we're looking for a good twisty thriller. Next, I have for you another exceptionally twisty thriller. This one has one of my favorite tropes, which is isolation in the snow, and that is Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors. I love Alice Feeney. I think she is so good at making you feel like you know what's going on when you really don't at all. And this is another one that has twist after twist. So this couple, for 10 years, they have exchanged traditional gifts, paper, cotton, whatever the traditional gifts are, wood. And this year it's their 10th anniversary. Adam is a screenwriter. He suffers with face blindness. This is a real condition that some people have where they just can't seem to recognize faces. Obviously, he can understand the voices of people that he loves. He can differentiate between the people that he knows in different ways, but if he was a witness to a murder per se, he would never be able to pick out that person in a lineup. They win this trip to Scotland for their anniversary, where they go and stay in this secluded tiny little cabin that is actually, it's an Airbnb, but it was converted from like a church or something. Their marriage is on the brinks. Like, this is gonna make or break their marriage for them. And so there's a lot depending on this weekend away, but when they get there, weird things start happening. They start thinking that they're seeing people watching them in the windows. They have their dog with them, and their dog keeps running off in the snow. There was this blizzard. They can't get out. It's a very high-stress situation, and as we go, we learn so much more about them individually and as a couple, and the twists just keep coming. Alice Feeney is so good at this, and I love her for that. If you haven't read this one yet, highly recommend. The next book I want to talk about, I read when I first started reading thrillers, and I don't know if I would love it as much if I read it today. But not having read every single trope there was out there, this one absolutely knocked my socks off, and that is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. You would never guess the twist to this in a million years. You just wouldn't. You would never guess it, and it's one of those things that's just so out there. We're following Louise, who is a single mother. She is a secretary at this company, and she goes out to a bar one night. She meets this nice guy, and she's like, oh my God, he's cute. And they kiss. And she is so excited to finally have like a prospect after so long and to maybe like catch feelings for somebody. You know, it's so exciting when you start catching feelings for somebody. Until she goes to work the next day and meets her new boss, and it is David, who is the man that she met in the bar last night and also is very married. Later, she goes out and she meets Adele. Adele is new in town. They start to make friends. And then she discovers Adele is, wouldn't you know, David's wife. None of those are spoilers. So she's got this awkward secret because she kissed Adele's husband, hello, but her and Adele are becoming very close. And she's starting to realize that something about this relationship is just off, like something's not right. David seems really controlling. Adele seems like she might actually just be like afraid of him, but Louise doesn't see that because from what she sees of him, he seems like a really good guy. The way this unravels, I think there's journal entries from the past. There are multiple timelines in here, and then as we're getting to know this couple, we get insights from their past as well. And the way that this comes together at the end is, it's terrifying, really. It is pretty terrifying. I love this ending. This is one of my favorite endings of a book. I thought it was perfection. That may not be a popular opinion, but I loved this ending. If you want to be completely shocked and you haven't read this book or seen the adaptation, read it and then watch the adaptation. I actually did like the adaptation of this one, if I remember correctly. There is something about this twist where a visual aspect is helpful in kind of putting it together as you go, but I think reading the book first is definitely the way to go because you don't see it coming for that exact reason. So highly recommend this one as well. The sixth and final book that I want to recommend to you today is Next of Kin by Kia Abdella. This one took me completely by surprise. Now, if you don't like legal thrillers, you may not love this, though I will say that is only part of this book. I think it's split up into 3 parts, if I'm not mistaken. Part of it is like family drama. It's very high stakes. We're following Layla Saeed, who basically raised her little sister after their mother took her own life years ago. Layla and her husband have been trying to have a baby for years and years, but in the meantime, she's happy to help her little sister and her brother-in-law with their kid Max, who she absolutely adores. One day she gets a call from her brother-in-law. He's been called into work and he needs her to help give little Max a ride to the nursery. This is also set in London. And so she says, of course, I'll help you out. She helps him out all the time. Like, this is not out of the ordinary for her. So she's taking him to the nursery on her way to work, but on the way there, she gets a call. There is a big deal that has gone very wrong, and they need her immediately. She runs to work. Later on that day, gets a call from her brother-in-law who is panicked, saying he went to pick up Max from the nursery, and Max is not there. That's when she realizes she forgot to drop him off. He's been in the car for 6 hours on the hottest day of the year. And the worst case scenario plays out, as you might imagine. There's so much going on in this. It not only is that situation just awful and heart-wrenching and, oh my God, just cleaves your heart in two. The family dynamics between Layla and her sister, her brother-in-law, her own husband, they love each other, but they don't know why this happened. There is also a perspective of a police officer who thinks Layla is very much responsible for this, which in a way she is, but the question and the whole legal aspect of this is, was that intentional? Did she intentionally leave baby Max in the car thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go fix this, I'll come right back and it'll be fine, and then forgot? Or did she just go into auto mode and totally forgot the kid was in the backseat and just went into work? And that kind of will decipher and will decide the legal ramifications of this. And so the whole time you don't know whose side you're on. For a while I was like, is this just a family drama? And then I got hit with a twist. And then I got hit with another twist. And then I got hit with another twist. By the time I closed this book, I was just in awe. I loved this story. I tend to like a legal thriller, so, you know, if you don't like legal stuff, you may not love this, but I think if you don't like legal stuff, you still might like it because there is that whole family dynamic aspect and there are the twists of a hardcore thriller in here. So if you're on the cusp of, oh, should I check this out or should I not? I'd say go for it, 100%. Those are my top 5, or in this case, 6 finds for books with wild twists. Of course, I want your recommendations too. If you have any other books, especially thriller and horror books that have just wild and crazy twists, please let me know down in the comments below. I appreciate you all so much. Don't forget that life is short, so read Riley. Cheers and goodbye.